I still remember the first morning I truly heard the silence. Not the absence of sound, but a deep, steady quiet that seemed to wrap around my heart. I had woken before dawn, restless after another night of tossing with thoughts about people who had spoken harshly to me the day before. Their words kept echoing inside my head like a chorus I couldn't switch off. That morning, I walked out of my small apartment into the cool air and found myself at a lake on the edge of town. Mist floated on the surface. The world had not yet begun its noise. Birds perched in the trees but had not started singing. Even the water seemed to hold its breath. In that moment, I felt something stir in me, a faint but unmistakable strength that was not angry, not defensive, just quietly present. For years, I had believed that responding, explaining, defending myself was the only way to survive in a world full of criticism and negativity. Whenever someone attacked me, I felt compelled to reply, to prove my worth, to argue my innocence. But every time I engaged, I left a little more drained, a little more bitter, and a little more convinced that life was a constant battle. That morning by the lake, something inside whispered, "There is another way." It was not a voice from outside, but from within. As though my own heart had been waiting to speak, I watched the mist shift and break apart. And with each breath, the tension in my chest loosened. I remembered a line I had once read from a Buddhist teacher about the power of not grasping at every arrow thrown our way. He had said that a person can stand like a tree in a storm. The wind moves around them, but the trunk stays rooted. Standing there, I realized that my constant struggle to counter negativity was like catching every arrow, clutching every insult to my chest. What if I simply didn't catch them anymore? What if, instead of reacting, I allowed them to pass? As the sky began to lighten, I felt the first hint of warmth on my face. The lake reflected a soft blush of pink and gold. I imagined that each ripple on the surface was a thought, each wave of anger or hurt traveling outward until it disappeared into the wider water. For the first time in a long while, I felt a small smile rise without effort. I didn't feel triumphant or superior. I felt a calm curiosity. If I could hold on to this silent strength for even a few moments, maybe I could change the way I met the world. I turned and started walking back along the path. The sound of gravel under my feet mixing with my slow, deliberate breathing. There was no grand revelation, no dramatic vision, only a clear sense that the power I had been searching for wasn't in winning arguments or pushing people away. It was in something quieter, something gentler, something far more enduring. I didn't know exactly how to practice it yet, but the seed had been planted. The silence had given me a glimpse of another kind of power. A power born not of ignoring people to punish them, but of releasing their negativity so it could no longer cling to me. That morning, without planning it, I took the first step on a path I had never walked before. I used to think I was alone in this struggle, but over time, I began to see how many of us live under the same invisible weight. Friends, colleagues, even strangers on the bus would quietly share stories of being drained by someone's harsh words, subtle criticism, or constant demands. We live in a world that celebrates loudness and reaction. The moment we open our phones, we are hit with opinions, judgments, arguments, and provocations. Sometimes it comes from people close to us, a parent, a partner, a friend who no longer understands us. Sometimes it comes from strangers online whose faces we have never seen. Yet the effect is the same. Our hearts become heavy, our minds restless, and our days feel like a series of small battles we didn't ask to fight. I can still picture my own mornings before. I would wake up already tense, rehearsing responses to things people had said the day before. On the way to work, I would mentally draft messages, explaining myself, defending myself, trying to be heard. By the time I arrived, I was exhausted, even though the day had barely begun. Many of you may know this feeling, that dull ache inside when you replay an argument over and over, or when you sense someone's disapproval even before they speak. It is like carrying a backpack filled with stones that no one else can see. When I began sharing my experiences, people wrote back to me with their own. One woman told me she spent years trying to earn her father's approval, only to be met with silence or criticism. A young man confessed that social media made him feel invisible unless he argued with strangers. A teacher said her students' parents sent angry emails every week, and she had started dreading opening her inbox. Their stories were different in detail, but identical in essence. Each person felt pulled into a whirlpool of negativity and didn't know how to step out. What I realized, and what I want you to feel as you listen, is that this is not a personal flaw. You are not weak because you are affected by harsh words or judgment. You are human. The mind reacts to pain, just as the body reacts to heat. But just as we can learn to move our hand away from a flame, we can also learn to stop feeding our minds with every negative spark. In Buddhist practice, this is called recognizing the arrow before it pierces too deep. We cannot always control who fires the arrow, but we can control whether we let it stay inside us. As you hear me speak, think of your own life. Who or what drains your energy the most? When you scroll your phone or walk into your workplace, what thoughts immediately tighten your chest? Close your eyes for a moment and notice the feeling. That heaviness, that tension, is the same weight I once carried. You are not imagining it. You are not overreacting. It is real and it is common. And as I began to discover, it is possible to loosen its grip. Standing here now, speaking to you, I am not pretending to have mastered it perfectly. But I know the difference between a life built on constant reaction and a life built on silent strength. The first left me depleted, always on edge. The second began to give me room to breathe, to choose, to respond rather than react. As you listen to this story, allow yourself to see your own reflection inside it. This isn't just my journey, it is ours. We are connected by the same storms, and we can also be connected by the same calm that waits beneath them. When I first began to explore Buddhist teachings, I wasn't looking for a religion or a label. I was looking for a way to breathe. Every book I opened, every talk I listened to, felt like a mirror showing me pieces of myself I had ignored. One teaching in particular struck me: the image of the Buddha sitting beneath the Bodhi tree, while Mara, the embodiment of temptation, fear, and negativity, tried to disturb him. Mara sent armies of demons, arrows, storms, and illusions. Yet the Buddha did not rise to fight, nor did he run away. He simply sat, breathing, touching the earth as a witness. The arrows turned into flowers and fell harmlessly at his feet. That story changed the way I saw my own struggles. I realized that the people, comments, and situations that hurt me were like Mara's arrows, real enough to sting, but powerless once I stopped grasping them. Another teaching spoke about the second arrow. That first arrow is the painful event, someone's insult, a betrayal, a loss. The second arrow is our reaction, the replaying, the self-blame, the endless mental arguments. The Buddha said that while we cannot always avoid the first arrow, we can choose not to shoot ourselves with the second. This was a revelation. All my life, I had been shooting myself with second arrows. I took someone's harsh words and made them a permanent echo. I picked up negativity and carried it long after the moment had passed. Slowly, through meditation and mindfulness, I began to practice laying the second arrow down. In my daily sitting practice, I would notice the thoughts rising in my mind. A critic's voice, a memory of an argument, a feeling of shame. Instead of following it, I learned to label it softly, thinking. I breathed in and out, feeling the air move through my nose, feeling my body anchored to the cushion. At first it felt impossible. The mind wanted to jump up and defend itself. But over weeks and months, a small shift occurred. The thoughts still came, but they passed more quickly. My body stayed calmer. It was as if I was standing on the bank of a river. Instead of being swept away by its current. I also learned about right speech and right intention. Buddhist teachings do not simply say, ignore people. They invite us to see clearly. Sometimes silence is avoidance. Sometimes it is wisdom. The difference lies in our heart. If we withdraw from anger in order to punish someone, we are still caught in the net. If we become quiet in order to protect our peace and respond with compassion later, we are practicing silent strength. This nuance helped me stop confusing suppression with serenity. It taught me that inner peace is active, not passive, a living choice, moment by moment. Walking meditation became another tool. In a small park near my home, I would take slow, deliberate steps, synchronizing my breath with my movement. Each step became a mantra. Arriving home, in that quiet rhythm, I felt the noise of other people's opinions fade. Trees did not hurry to grow. Water did not argue with rocks. I was reminded that my own life, too, could move at its own pace. The more I practiced, the less urgent the world's negativity felt. Like clouds drifting across the sky, it came and went, but my awareness remained like the blue expanse behind them. There was also the teaching of metta, or loving kindness. At first, this seemed impossible. How could I send goodwill to people who had hurt me? Yet the practice was gentle. I didn't have to force forgiveness. I simply began with myself. May I be safe. May I be peaceful. Then, little by little, I extended it outward to someone neutral, then to someone difficult. I noticed that when I held even a small wish for their peace, my own heart felt lighter. Their negativity lost some of its grip on me because I was no longer feeding it with my resentment. In the evenings, I would read small verses from the Dhammapada, the ancient collection of the Buddha's sayings. One line became like a lantern for me. Hatred is never appeased by hatred. By non-hatred alone is hatred appeased. This was not a call to let people harm me without boundaries, but an invitation to stop fueling the cycle inside myself. Every time I reacted with equal negativity, I handed my power away. Every time I paused, breathed, and chose a calmer response, I reclaimed a piece of myself. Slowly, I began to see that silent strength is not silence for its own sake. It is clarity. It is a refusal to be dragged into storms that are not mine. It is a space in which compassion can grow. Compassion for myself, and sometimes even for those who lash out. From that space, my words became fewer but truer. My actions became slower but surer. I was no longer a leaf tossed in the wind of other people's moods. I was learning to be the tree. I share this not as a perfect example, but as a fellow traveler. These teachings are not abstract. They are living practices you can carry into your next conversation, your next online interaction, your next moment of self-doubt. When someone's words sting, remember Mara's arrows turning into flowers. When your mind replays an insult, remember the second arrow and gently put it down. When you feel the urge to argue, pause and breathe and ask, is this my storm or theirs? In that pause, silent strength is born. And from that strength, a different kind of life begins to open. One not ruled by negativity, but guided by a steady, compassionate presence within you. When the teachings began to take root in my life, they stopped feeling like words from a book and started to feel like muscles I could exercise. I realized that if silent strength was going to be more than a beautiful idea, I had to practice it in small, ordinary moments. Every morning before opening my phone, I would sit on the edge of my bed, place my feet on the floor, and take 10 slow breaths. With each breath, I whispered inwardly, I am here. I am safe. I choose peace. It felt awkward at first, but slowly my nervous system began to expect this pause. Instead of diving straight into the noise of the day, I created a soft boundary of calm dot in conversations. I experimented with listening without instantly preparing my reply. When someone criticized me or spoke sharply, I let their words land and dissolve before answering. Sometimes I didn't answer at all right away. I would breathe in, notice my heartbeat, and then decide if a response was even necessary. This simple pause became my first shield. It didn't make me passive. It gave me space to choose. On days when emotions were high, I would silently name what I felt: anger, hurt, fear. Naming the feeling was like turning on a light in a dark room. Suddenly, I could see where I was standing. Walking meditation became another daily anchor. In a small lane near my home, I would walk slowly, heel to toe, synchronizing my steps with my breath. I would imagine that each step pressed roots into the earth. With every exhale, I let go of one thought. Stepping, letting go. The world around me didn't change. Cars still passed. People still argued. But my inner posture became steadier. It was like learning to surf instead of trying to calm the ocean. I also created small rituals to release negativity. At night, before sleeping, I would write down on a slip of paper any words or events that had hurt me that day. Then I would fold the paper and place it in a jar. I called the river. Once a week, I burned those slips and watched the ash drift upward. It was symbolic, but it helped my mind remember that I did not have to store everything inside me. I could acknowledge pain without building a shrine to it. Loving kindness meditation became the gentlest but most transformative practice. Sitting quietly, I began with myself. May I be free from harm. May I be peaceful. Then I pictured someone neutral, a shopkeeper, a stranger. May you be peaceful. Only when I felt ready would I bring to mind someone difficult. Sometimes I could only whisper, "May you be at ease," without meaning it fully. That was enough. Over time, I noticed a subtle loosening inside. The grip of resentment weakened, and with it, the hold of their negativity over me. There were also moments of deliberate silence. Instead of scrolling social media late at night, I would light a candle and sit for 5 minutes in quiet. No mantra, no music, just the sound of my breathing. This small act of withdrawing from constant input became a form of self-respect. In that silence, the world's demands faded, and my own inner voice became clearer. Practicing silent strength did not mean becoming a saint overnight. I still got angry. I still felt hurt, but now I had tools. A breath, a pause, a step, a word of kindness. These practices were like seeds. Each time I watered them with attention, a little more space opened inside me. In that space, I could stand taller, speak softer, and move through the day without carrying every arrow that came my way. This is what application looks like. Not a dramatic transformation in one day, but a gentle training of the heart until calm becomes your natural home. As I look back now, I can see how each small choice led me to a very different way of living. The lake at dawn, the first breath before checking my phone, the pause before replying to someone's harsh words. None of these moments were dramatic on their own, but together they built a path. That path is still unfolding, and it is not a straight line. Some days I slip, some days I react, but even then, I know how to return to the center. Silent strength is not a finish line we cross once. It is a living practice, like tending a garden. We water it, we clear weeds, we sit in it. Slowly, quietly, it becomes part of us. If you have been listening to my story and recognizing pieces of your own life in it, know that this path is not reserved for monks, saints, or people with perfect discipline. It is for anyone who is tired of carrying other people's negativity. It is for anyone who longs for a moment of peace in a noisy world. You don't have to wait until you are ready to begin. You begin by taking one conscious breath. You begin by choosing to let one arrow drop instead of catching it. You begin by giving yourself permission to be still for a few seconds longer than usual. These are tiny steps, but they are powerful. I want you to imagine right now what your life might feel like if you gave yourself even a little more space each day. How would your mornings feel if you woke without rehearsing arguments? How would your evenings feel if you released the day before sleeping? How would your heart feel if you sent a single silent wish of kindness to yourself before meeting someone difficult? The beauty of these practices is that you don't have to wait for the world to change. You create the change inside you, and from there it ripples outward. So I invite you, as you finish this video, to make a quiet promise to yourself. Pick one practice from what you've heard: the pause, the breath, the walk, the loving kindness, and try it today. Not tomorrow, not next week. Today. Give it 5 minutes. Then notice how you feel. That small act is the seed of silent strength growing inside you. Over time, with patience, it will become a steady companion. If this story has touched something in you, if you felt seen or less alone while listening, share it with someone else who might be struggling. You don't have to explain it. Just send it as a gesture of kindness. Comment below what practice you're going to try so others can be inspired by you. And if you want to walk this path with me, subscribe so you can continue receiving these gentle teachings. Together, even in our separate homes, we can form a quiet community of people learning to rise above negativity. This is the heart of silent strength. It is not about ignoring people out of coldness. It is about freeing yourself so you can respond with clarity, compassion, and courage. It begins within you, right now, in this breath. As you close your eyes at the end of this video, take that breath. Feel your feet on the floor. And remember, you are not powerless. There is a calm center inside you that no storm can take away. From that center, you can meet the world without losing yourself. And that, more than anything, is the true strength you've been seeking.